Welcome back to the Driven Career Podcast. This is a space where we talk about professional life and personal development to inspire you to overcome the challenges and grow in your career. And in today's episode, we are exploring how you can stand out in today's competitive job market. I had a great conversation with an experienced recruiter here in Vancouver, in Canada, about what it takes to shine in this global pool of candidates and the importance of keeping your LinkedIn profile up to date and nurture your networking, as we never know when it might be time to pivot. So, this is a great reminder for anyone looking for career growth or just stay informed about this ever evolving job market. Grab your headphones and let's go to the episode. So here we are with Britt Mayne. Hi, Britt. Good morning. How are you today?
Hi, Rachel. It's so good to see you. I am doing well. How are you doing?
I'm very good. I'm so happy the sun is shining here this morning in Vancouver. And so happy that you
Yes.
are here joining us in the episode today to talk about the recruitment side, sharing some insights about your experience and how we can share more information about that. But before anything, let's start from your introduction. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you are currently doing, Britt.
Sounds great. Well, thanks again, Rachel, for the opportunity to connect here. And hi, listeners. My name is Britt Mayne, and I'm really passionate about helping people navigate their career journeys. So I'm a recruiter, I am a resume reviewer, and I'm the founder of the Weekday Club, which is a recruitment practice that's really dedicated to supporting candidates in landing better opportunities.
That's great. Yeah, I've been following you for a while, Britt. I love your work and your posts on LinkedIn. I do recommend that you guys follow her on LinkedIn. So very good insights. And let's dive into this aspect of the job searching, especially nowadays that in 2025, the market is shifting a little bit and there are some challenges out there. So let's start from you telling us a little bit more about what do you see out there, Britt, that could be helpful to professionals that are currently applying for jobs. And especially nowadays, we have a lot of professionals customizing their resumes and their application through AI. And at the same time, we have the AI screening all the candidates. So
Right.
what could be the best practice for the candidates to stand out in the market right now?
Yeah, that's a great question, Rachel. It has definitely been an interesting year and a half in the world of hiring. We've seen a lot of uncertainty in the market. There's been a lot of layoffs happening in many organizations across industries, and also, yeah, just a lot of uncertainty with restructuring and things like that. So that's led to there being a lot of talent available in the market and has led to it being a very competitive applicant and candidate market out there. So, yeah, we're seeing things change all the time. And when you add in now tools like AI, how does that translate to candidates really being able to compete with the sheer volume of applicants, but then also that extra layer and filter that there are with AI tools. So it is really challenging for candidates to stand out in this market. And I have that in conversations I'm having with talent all the time. I get the questions, I've applied for all the jobs. I either hear nothing or I get declined right away. And I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong when it comes to my application. So I think there's a few ways that people can really stand out. One is really focusing on your personal brand. And so that's really where I try to coach people the most, is really creating a personal brand that is reflective of the unique experience and value that you can bring, and also is really sharing your story and making it make sense as to why you are applying for the role. So it's really important to have a strong personal brand, and that's not only reflective in your resume, that's also translating to platforms like LinkedIn, for example, or through your portfolio, and also how you're showing up in conversations and interviews. So it's really, really important to have a strong personal brand. and really have that story that is a compelling one so that people are going to want to engage in further conversation with you and your application. So that's kind of the biggest thing I would say in my recommendation for people to really stand out in their applications.
And I also think that the challenge is that most of the applicants, they don't even get a chance to interview, to showcase.
Mhm.
And so I like what you said, building up strong personal brand, tailor
Mhm.
your resume. That is strategy. But even beyond that, the networking, right, Brit? I think
Absolutely.
nowadays with the bots screening everything, I think that connecting with people in the industries that they are interested to join,
Mhm.
that's super helpful as well. At least that what I have seen it in in my experience as well. What have you seen in terms of that?
Yeah, I think networking is something that we should all take advantage of, regardless of where we're at in our career journey. Even if we've been happy in our company and our role for so long, we never want to get it to a point where, we're desperate for a new opportunity and we have to start from scratch. So I think it's so important to be really mindful of continuing to network throughout your career. And that can look differently. Sometimes that's leveraging a platform like LinkedIn, creating a community, maybe being active on LinkedIn by sharing really thoughtful comments on posts or your own content and things like that, and just really building a strong community and network digitally. But I also think, relationship building in person is important, and you
Yes.
should be doing that throughout your career. So maybe it's about going to relevant networking events in your industry or your profession. Maybe it's about taking a new course once in a while and just starting to connect with new people. Maybe it's even just finding your community in your hobbies, right? And you never know who you're going to meet when you join, maybe a new hobby. Maybe you're taking tennis lessons and you get connected to someone that, also works in marketing or whatever it looks like. I think really building those authentic, genuine in-person connections really does go a long way still. And also befriending a recruiter, having a recruiter relationship in your back pocket, whether you are looking to make a move now or maybe in a couple of years from now. It's so good just to have those people in your community that you can really lean on and pull to, regardless of where you're at that given time. So yeah, I think in-person connection really does go a long way still.
I like what you said about the relationship with the recruiter as well. And by the
Hmm.
way, as you were speaking, I just remember now that recently you posted something saying, I'm here waiting for the candidate. Someone just
Oh yeah.
didn't show up, right?
Yes, yes. Little details honestly go such a long way. And I think that's something that's really important for candidates to remember is that, making sure that you're showing up to conversations, like actually one, showing up, but two, showing up to that conversation prepared, being mindful of how you're presenting yourself from a visual perspective, but also, how you're positioning yourself in the value that you can bring. So I think just, yeah, being really intentional about where you're spending your time and your energy and really focusing on building those relationships is key. And then also, like you said, think about the little details, coming to conversations punctually, following up with people if there's maybe changes in your schedule, you know, um, when you are applying to an opportunity, make sure that your resume has your name labeled there properly and that you've kind of put that extra little effort in there. So it's just a lot of little details that do go a long way and can really help talent stand out in a very competitive job market.
Everything is sending a message, right, Brit? Like everything we are
Absolutely.
doing in the market. And the market is small. Even if you're applying globally, it is a quite small world.
Mhm.
So you never know.
Absolutely. I think this is our relationship here is a perfect example of that. Back
Yeah.
in the day, I interviewed with you, and I remember just having a really positive experience. Ultimately, it wasn't the right fit at that stage in my career for us to work together. But, a few years later, now here we are having this conversation. So I think really focusing on those relationships is so important because, yeah, you never know whether something's going to come from that right now or maybe further down the line.
That is a perfect example for sure. So, Britt, just before our recording today, I posted a question on my LinkedIn asking my audience what's been their biggest challenge when applying for jobs. And throughout the answers, they had some options here about not hearing from their application or being rejected right away between
Mm,
24 to 48 hours, getting the resumes lost in the ATS, or
mm,
no idea on how to stand out. And thanks for the participation from my connections from LinkedIn and Instagram. So the majority of the answers, Britt, was around number one, not hearing back after applying or getting rejected right away within 24 hours up to 48 hours after applying for the positions. Is there anything different that the candidates could focus on when applying? Is there anything else they could do to pass these challenges at the moment?
mhm. Thanks for running that poll. And when I talk to candidates as well, it's definitely the feedback that I'm receiving is, either I submit an application and it's been weeks, if not months, and I've never heard anything ever again. It kind of went into a black hole, or I'm getting these almost automatic rejections. And how does that make any sense? How did someone have the time to, go through my application and already reject and decline me? So I think really it comes down to making sure that when you are applying for opportunities, that you are being strategic in your approach. And so we all have bad days at work. And sometimes people, take that bad day and they decide to go hit apply on opportunities, right? And so maybe those opportunities they're applying for are just there and they're available, so they're really just, submitting an application and seeing what happens, but they're not being very strategic. And so I always encourage people to really, before you hit apply, go, am I applying because this is available? Or am I applying because this truly feels aligned to where I want to be in my next role? And so one, I think it's really important to be strategic when you are hitting that apply button. The next is we want to be mindful that it is a really competitive market right now. And so there are often, hundreds, if not thousands of applicants
Yeah.
coming in. And so you're competing in such a large pool. And how can you make sure that your application is really standing out and really, communicating your story and making it make sense as to why you are applying. So I think the more context we can add in our resume and our application is really key. And always kind of have the lens when you are putting together your application is maybe it's someone really, really junior that is reviewing my application. Maybe if I'm applying for a marketing role, they've never worked within marketing. And so they don't really understand the scope and responsibilities of this role. And so they almost have a checklist based on the job description that they've received. So am I communicating how I am going to be a great fit for this role based on, that job description? And so I think making it easy for the recruiter or the hiring manager or the junior HR person that's scanning and reviewing those resumes, that it makes sense as to why you're applying. And also recognizing that they're probably spending a few seconds glancing at your resume before making that hiring decision. So we want to make sure that our resume, right at the top of that resume, is really communicating our story effectively. And it's really evident and clear as to why we're applying for the opportunity so that we can move forward in that process. And then now you add in using tools like AI to screen through resumes. And I've, heard a lot of people that are like, well, I'm just going to add all the keywords into my resume and,
Mm-hmm.
hope that I can get filtered through. So, yes, we want to make sure that we're adding in those keywords and things like that. But we also want to, focus on that personal connection. So maybe you can then, once you've hit apply, find the hiring manager that posted the role, maybe send them a kind note over LinkedIn, just that you applied for the opportunity, or like a little detail like that, so that your application is getting reviewed by the right person and it's really evident and clear why you're applying for the role.
I love that. Yeah, the intentionality and the strategy. That's
Yes.
so true because sometimes we just get like this number of applications, but many times that is not matching with the job description in terms
Mhm.
of some specific requirements and especially about the location. I know that we are nowadays living in a global world where people are applying for different locations, but sometimes there are some job postings that specifically mention the location where this job is. It is required to go to the office. And even though you get at least 20% of applicants applying from overseas that are not even eligible to work in that country. So connecting to what you said about the intentionality, really spend some time doing some analysis throughout that job description to make sure that is something that is connected to your own experience and that you are able to accept that job. Because what if you're applying overseas but you have a long way to go with all the applications for immigrations and so on.
Mhm.
I would add that point because I've experienced like a good number of applications, and that's hard on the on the other side of the table as well, right?
Yeah,
Going through all of
absolutely.
this.
Yeah, you bring up a great point there, Rachel. And, you know, I think often we get really discouraged when we apply for something and we don't get the role or we get declined right away. But, you know, really making sure that we're spending that time and putting together a thoughtful application really goes a long way. You know, I often get reach outs from people that probably saw me post about a job I'm hiring for and recruiting for. And I can just tell right away that they have put zero effort into actually reviewing what I'm looking for. And oftentimes it's that location piece. Like I'll post, you know, this role does require hybrid work arrangements from Vancouver. Candidates must be based currently within Vancouver, Metro Vancouver. And I'll get people all over, you know, Canada or into the US applying for the role. And right away, you know, that just kind of shows to me that they didn't pay attention and put
Yeah.
that effort into reviewing what I am really looking for. And so, how can you kind of expect someone to do the same for you if you're not spending that you know, amount of time making sure that you really are that right fit before hitting apply. So I think it goes both ways. I think as a candidate, if you really do want someone to put, you know, kind of handle your application with care, you should still put the same amount of care in your application so that you do, yeah, have that mutual respect.
It is a lot of work for both sides, right? It
Yeah.
takes time when you're applying for jobs, going through all these applications, understanding what the job is, the role entitled, the industry. It does take time. That's why more than ever we say that the job applications is strategic. They are
Mhm.
the strategy that you're using. It's not only hitting the button, apply on LinkedIn. That's just adding the numbers and not representing the qualification of the applications, right?
Absolutely.
Britt, and then so as you're going through the applications and connecting with your clients, the hiring managers, so usually on the back end here, right? We receive the applications and then we connect with the hiring managers. We get a number of applicants that are potential fit.
Mhm.
And then as you go through this process with the hiring managers, what have you seen that are the common biggest mistakes that the candidates they're doing on how the candidates perform during interviews? What do you usually hear from the hiring managers about their mistakes on their interviews?
Yeah, I would say when I'm working with candidates that are interviewing, you know, I've recruited them, we've gone through the role, you know, we've prepped them for the interview. Usually they're showing up to that conversation really prepared, excited, and engaged. But through my peers and friends in the industry, especially if they're working on the internal recruitment side, you know, often they're coming into those conversations with maybe candidates that just aren't really excited or maybe just not coming to the conversation really prepared. Maybe they haven't done their research ahead of time of, you know, the company and some of the, you know, kind of core values that they have and why it's feeling aligned. And they're not able to really communicate that in the conversation. Maybe they haven't really gone through the job description in full detail and identified like why they are a great match for it and can again really communicate that effectively. So I think it's a few little things about just people coming to the conversation prepared and really confident in, you know, the story that they've created for themselves, why they're an excellent fit, why they should, be considered for the role, what unique value and experience do they bring, and how does this role, or the company really align to their career goals. So I think really coming to those conversations prepared goes a long way. And that also, goes into if you're having a virtual conversation, coming to that meeting really prepared and presenting yourself well. And that, it comes into a few different areas. It's how you show up on camera. It's, your space and your background. Have you put effort into, where you're having the conversation? Is the background clear and clutter free? How are you again communicating your story thoughtfully? And so, yeah, I would say it's probably just having people come to the conversations really prepared and engaged and excited.
I've worked with recruiters. I've been mostly in my experience doing the in-house recruitment, and then we partner with recruiters and we do that debrief to understand about the candidates' profiles. And when we're having these conversations, there are a lot of candidates that we're very excited about. Well, this one is the one. It's a great fit. So it is a little bit frustrating when we have this conversation when some potential candidates they go through these little mistakes that totally harm their application.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think when you do work with an external hiring partner, it's a job of a good recruiter to really ensure that the candidates are heading into that conversation prepared and also excited and can really communicate again their story and the why behind them exploring the role in a really compelling way. So yeah, I agree with you there 100%, Rachel. It is all about the little details, and those little details make a huge difference, when it comes to standing out as a candidate.
Yeah, it comes down to your preparation when you are in that first 9 seconds to showcase and stand out in an interview. So that's why the preparation is key. That's definitely a plus when they're coming through recruiters because they are usually more prepared because of the great work that you guys do during the debrief with the candidates.
You really want to make sure ahead of any conversation that you know who you're meeting with. So doing a little research on, the person that you have the screening call with or that first round interview with, learn about their background, and that way you're able to have more of that personal conversation. Like you can ask questions like, "Oh, Rachel, I see that you recently joined, in the last 6 months. How are you enjoying your time here? Like what made you want to work for this company?" And you can ask more thoughtful questions. And again, it comes down to that relationship building piece, right? You're having more genuine connection with people, and that goes a long way. So I think it's so important to come into those conversations prepared and really engaged and really focus on those relationship building pieces.
Yes. And Britt, from your perspective as a recruiter, what separates someone that is stuck, that stays stuck in that job search, and those who really break through and actually get the job? What are the main differences that you see between these two style of candidates?
Yeah, I think it's someone that's being a little bit more passive and someone that's really going and putting in the energy. So again, just because you had a bad day at work doesn't mean you should just apply for 25 jobs out there. You really do want to be strategic and mindful of what you are applying for, especially when we, live and work in a city like Vancouver. It is a pretty small and well-connected city. So if we are applying for opportunities, we want to be strategic in that. And we want to make sure that they are going to be that right next move in our career. So I think, again, less is more. Really focus on being strategic with your applications. And yeah, coming down to that personal branding piece. So making sure that your application and all those other pieces like your portfolio and your LinkedIn profile are really communicating your story and your value well. And then also, that relationship building piece. If I'm looking to hire for a role, And, it's between a candidate that I've never met with, or, a candidate that I know, I've known for a few years, or I have mutual connections with, I'm probably going to lean towards at least having that first conversation with a person that I feel a little bit more personally connected to. So I think it's a number of different things, but I think it's really about yeah, making sure that you have that strong kind of full package, in terms of your application, and that you're also, building those genuine connections with people, because those connections really do go a long way.
Yeah, I love hearing that, the full package of your application. Because one thing that I want to highlight here is that how sometimes the resume is not really matching with their profile on LinkedIn. So you receive that application and that's not really telling me the same story, right? So we need to see that consistency.
Yeah, I do a lot of resume reviewing, and part of that process is also reviewing that individual's LinkedIn profile. And it's shocking how many times someone's, resume does not match
Yeah.
their LinkedIn profile. And so, LinkedIn is a great tool to leverage in your job search and your career journey, regardless of where you are in that job search. So I always like to tell people, make sure it's reflective of what you have on your resume and your experience. You don't have to become this big thought leader or influencer on LinkedIn, but just making sure like the little things do align so that if someone is going to your LinkedIn profile, after you've applied with your resume, that they're seeing the same kind of story communicated there. And it's matching in terms of dates and job titles and things like that. So it's just kind of like a great little mini background check. So I definitely encourage people to make sure that you at least have a LinkedIn profile that is up to date and, has all the right bits and pieces there. And, I would encourage people, every few months, just make sure that both your resume and your LinkedIn profile are up to date. It's really
Yeah.
hard when we've been, I work with talent all the time that's like, I've it's been 10 years since I updated my resume, and I'm going, well, how are you going to remember what you did 10, even 5 or 2 years ago? And that's so much work. So every few months, or if you have a really exciting accomplishment at work, like even have a notes tab on your phone where you're putting that information so that when you do go to update your resume or your LinkedIn, you can right away draw on those experiences rather than like having to do a deep dive and go back 10 years or something and think of what you accomplished in that role. So I think just staying on top of the things and yeah, just like regularly having that information on hand is really key.
Yeah. Britt, that's why the name of the podcast and the work that I'm doing, it's Driven Career, because the driven
Mm.
professionals, they are looking to this. So it is important to keep an eye on these details because, as you said, you can't really remember all those things that you were doing at work today. And you might be doing great today at work, but the world is changing. So we never know what's coming. It's just being, again, intentional. Most
Mm.
of the application nowadays, they always require your LinkedIn page. So if you're not looking into that, that's not going to be consistent to match the information that you have on your resume, your cover letter, or your LinkedIn. So that is so important.
Yeah, when you were sharing that there, Rachel, it brought up an idea as well. So with LinkedIn, that is one of the largest databases of free resumes that are accessible to the public. And so it's where often recruiters, internal or external recruiters, will go to source talent for roles that maybe aren't necessarily posted, or are coming down the pipeline. So you want to make sure that, even if you are really happy in your role and you're not actively applying, but you want to make a strategic career move, that your LinkedIn is updated, because maybe someone like myself is going to come across your profile based on what you've shared and might have an opportunity for you that I can approach you with, that is going to be that strategic career move that maybe you weren't considering on your own. So it's just really important to leverage LinkedIn as a tool in your career, because regardless, again, if you are actively applying or just passively open to new opportunities, it's how people can approach you with opportunities. And sometimes those are the best roles that we can have brought. being brought forward to us. So I really encourage everyone to leverage LinkedIn as a tool, regardless of where you're at in your career search journey.
Yes, yes, really work on your LinkedIn, folks. Leverage that
Yes.
tool because these are the top-notch positions that you might get through your LinkedIn, working through your personal branding, really
Mhm.
demonstrating the amazing work you have been doing. Even as Britt mentioned, even if you're happy at your work, take some time, at least for 3 or 6, like every 3 or 6 months, to update your LinkedIn. Don't ignore that because LinkedIn is super important.
Well, you never want to be in a position where, you got laid off. You've been with a company for 8 or 10 years and you have to start from the bottom. You have to rebuild everything. You haven't updated your LinkedIn profile, your resume, all of those pieces. You haven't connected with your network on LinkedIn. So I think you never want to be in a position where you have to start from scratch. And so doing these little, adjustments and tweaks and fine tunes regularly, just every quarter, go into your resume and your LinkedIn and do those small little updates. And you never know again when the right opportunity might come to you. And so I definitely encourage people to stay on top of that, regardless if you are loving your job, which I hope you are, or you are really wanting to make that career change. It's just something that is strategic and will be supportive to you in that career journey.
Exactly. That's the importance of not neglecting the LinkedIn profile. So if you are currently working your LinkedIn every quarter, that's going to be much easier for you to even remember your beautiful accomplishments. Britt, before we wrap up, I always like to ask this to all my guests. What would be an advice or be a drop of wisdom that you would like to leave with our audience today?
Oh, I mean, I feel like there are so many little nuggets there. It's hard to kind of choose just one. Um, I think, like we were mentioning, the title of this podcast, The Driven Career. I think if you really want to be in the driver's seat of your career, you have to be strategic and you have to be thoughtful of what you're doing now to be supportive to you in getting that dream job that you're looking for. And so, yeah, I would say just being really clear on what you want out of your next chapter in your career. Maybe that's a certain title bump or there's a certain industry or brand you really want to align with. Maybe it's you just want to have a little bit more flexibility in your schedule, or you're looking for that, next step in your compensation, whatever it may be. I think just being really clear on what it is that you're looking for out of your next role. And that will really help to shape and identify potential opportunities that are going to be aligned to that. So, yeah, I think just getting really clear on what you're looking for, and that will help you be strategic and yeah, really be the one driving your career journey.
Love it. Yes, that's key. That's gold. Yeah, clarity and strategy. That's all we need to
Yes,
succeed.
absolutely.
Amazing.
And
Breathing.
relationships.
Yes, exactly. And
Yes.
relationships more than ever. So, yeah, I would definitely highlight that the relationships.
Mhm.
Britt, thank you so much for joining us today, for sharing all of these insights from your experience recruiting and working with so many talented individuals out there. So, if people want to find you, where they can find you online?
Yes, well, I live on LinkedIn, so please connect with me on LinkedIn. You can connect with me personally. I'm always looking to make really thoughtful connections. So my name is Britt Mayne. You can also follow the Weekday Club on LinkedIn, or if you'd like to be added to our database of candidates that are discreetly looking for their next role, you can send us an email, submit a form on our website at theweekdayclub.com. But yeah, I'd love to connect with you. So feel free to connect on LinkedIn.
That's perfect. So all the information from Britt will be here on the description of our episode. Thanks again for joining us. Let us know here in the comments what's been your biggest challenge in the job search and what stood out to you throughout this conversation. Britt and I really hope that this conversation was inspiring to you and that somehow helped you to get some insights on how you can perform in your job searching. We will come back next week with another amazing episode. And until then, stay driven.